down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
What's going on, Savvy investors? Hopefully you had a great holiday week, and it's on the way to the new year, 2017, and you're about to crush it. And hopefully that what you're doing is setting goals. Now, one of your goals may be to produce a podcast. Now, I'm going to come out straight, honest, authentic. It was never my intention to do a podcast. It was the hot thing to do a couple of years ago, and I wanted to do it. But man, after I started digging into the deal, this is a lot of work. It looks easy. It sounds easy, but it's not. I'm going to break it down to you. First of all, I got to give a shout out to my homie, Sean McVicker. We first started out doing a podcast together. I even went out and bought a MacBook Pro, thought I was somebody with a Mac. That didn't work out. A software called Garage, and we just couldn't get it to work. We had some Bluetooth headphones and probably did want it to work, but then we realized it's going to take a lot of work. And I just got to give thanks to him for sitting alongside, and Brad Berger for coming over when I was practicing. And he was my very first person that I interviewed. He interviewed me, and it was a fun deal. And then I got to give ultimate props to my wife. This was her idea. I never knew that it would get this far, and I'm just excited to see what 2017 brings. But I've had a lot of people ask me about doing podcasts. How do I do it? How does it go down? And this podcast is for you. Hopefully you'll gain a lot of knowledge very quickly, and that you can produce a podcast. I always say there's a book inside everybody, and I believe there's a voice for everybody, and it can be a podcast. So anyway, I'm here now. First of all, the first thing that you need to know, you need to have a plan. This isn't anything. If you're going to buy houses, if you're going to be a real estate investor, you're going to be a husband, you're going to be a wife, you're going to get married, you got to have a plan. And all those things as well are labor intensive, like having children. Now, I know that it can't compare for you ladies out there. Doing a podcast is next to having birth, but it feels like it. It is very labor intensive. And I never knew that it would be this much. I thought you just hit record, but there's a lot of variables, and then keeping up with the podcast because you want to be consistent in what you do. And I'm going to break down some books that I've read and just the things that I've learned along the way. So just one thing that you want to make ultimate, realize that you're not going to become a millionaire like John Lee Dumas or whatever that cat's name is that makes millions of dollars on his podcast, and Timothy Ferriss. And you can, but that shouldn't be your intention at first. You should just do it because you impact people or you're making a difference in someone's life. And that's why I've made it this far after a year and a half. It's just cool, the text messages and the love that a lot of you cats out there have just said, keep it going. And I'm telling you, it's not easy. So I know I'm trying to tell you on the front end, you're going to spend this money on this equipment, and it's just going to sit on your desk, and you think you're going to do it. And I'm going to be straight up. I did buy all this equipment, and it just sat there for several months. I even bought that Mac, and it took months, and through encouragement from my wife, and then I just started doing it. And if you listen to episode 1 all the way till now, you could see the growth, and you just got to keep going. You got to keep pushing it. Not everybody wants to do it. Everybody wants to do it, but no one wants to commit to it. So here's some things that I've learned. Number one, it takes 3 times of the audio. So for example, if you're going to break off a 20-minute episode, it's going to take you about an hour of your life to produce 20 minutes. So I look at it. I don't know where I got this from. I didn't read this. This is just from my own statistical situation. But, if I do a 10-minute podcast, it took me 30 minutes. It took me about, obviously, 10 minutes to produce it. And then you got to write it, and then you got to edit it. Okay. So that just so you know, this is very time consuming. Just this episode alone, I probably spent at least a couple hours because I want to give all the information to you to get it done, to make it right. I don't know if that makes sense. So I may have even longer, but that's just a statistical thing that I just figured out. Some podcasts that I bust out in 5 minutes, it didn't take me nothing. Some podcasts that take an hour, I may have a couple hours in it, just random, but it's 3 times. It only takes me a few minutes to edit them. But I'm going to break it down to you and how to do it. First of all, you got to have a goal, an idea, agenda. And, my whole thing has changed tremendously since I started. I thought it was going to be easy to do, just interview people. No, it's not easy to interview people. First, it's hard to convince people to come to your place or location. I even bought the mobile stuff so I can go to people's location and still just trying to convince people, hey, I want to interview you for the radio show. They're like, what's a radio show? I mean, a podcast. Well, what's a podcast? And what's the name of the show? The Savvy Radio Show. Never heard of it. All right. So just if you're just thinking you're just going to interview people and it's going to be easy, it's not. What I did find that people that support what you're doing is that you're bringing them authentic content that's legit, that's not conjured. This is the real deal. It unfolds. This is life. I think that works. Since I've been doing this for about 1.5 years, it is morphed into, I read, I think you gotta listen to the cat or read the book on John Lee Dumas. Okay. He has a podcast called Entrepreneur on Fire, and he posts how much he makes. And I just basically went to his website, read everything I could on the guy, and he just blew my mind that every day he started with nothing, $0, zero dude. Nobody know John Lee Dumas. Who is that guy? But he's making millions of dollars, and a lot of it was just real simple that he just started doing a podcast every day, interviewing, and then one person led to another person and just blew up for him. Well, congratulations to him. That's kind of where I base mine off of in essence. I'm not trying to make money off this thing. I'm just trying to help people one day. Hopefully someone, and I did have my first sponsor. Thank you to Al Williamson out there, landlord, Airbnb landlord. Thank you for that. Maybe someone else will see the value in what I'm trying to do. But it morphed into, I try to do Nerd Rock Wednesday. I try to do Big Money Monday, and then Fabulous Friday, which is best deal ever on Friday, which came from Pat Point. So it's just an ever-changing organic radio show. And yours may be that you may be all the detailed guy that have it all figured out and whatever. Well, good luck with that, because it just keeps changing. I thought that I was going to be doing a lot more interviews, and then this is my schedule and trying to hook up with people, and they're out of time and I'm out of town, and then you got to hook up the phone thing. So anyway, but this year, 2017, I'm going to bring a lot of more interviews. I think, for me personally, that's why I do interviews. I learn a lot just asking people questions, where they come from and how they get there. And I can learn from their experiences and just cut my time in half. That's why I like to interview people. Some people that's just their agenda. They just want to get a podcast out there to interview people. That's their content. Now I'm into the response that I'm getting from a lot of people. How do you do this? How do you buy houses? How do you rehab them? How do you write a podcast? Someone actually emailed me, texted me, said, man, how do you do a podcast? Would love for you to tell me about it. And so that's why I created this podcast in general. Well, the first thing you got to do, what I do is I write an outline. I'm like, what's my agenda? That's number one. What am I trying to do? So I wrote out podcast goal to write a podcast. And so I write out this outline that I'm reading from, and then I just add on to it. So then I hit record. Now, the equipment that I use, this is just for old school Van Callenberg. Now, this may not work for you. Some of you young tech people, they swear by the laptop. I'm not a big laptop guy. I love laptops. I got a Yoga 900 off the chain. Thank you, Thomas Morgan, for pushing me to get one. But here's the deal. I like to be hands-on. I use a Zoom H6 6-track. The cool thing about it, it's portable. So if I ever wanted to travel and I can do podcasts, you could do that with your laptop too. But I just like that I can control the volumes very quickly. It's visual. I could see it. I'm from the old school. I used to be on tour, and I looked it up just before I did this podcast. I paid $400 for the Zoom H6. Right now on Amazon, it's $350. It's a deal. All right, the microphone. Now, I'm all big on microphones. Of course, I used to work in a studio, so I kind of have a general idea. Well, I use on this recording, and I'm about to change up because I'm doing research for this podcast, and that's what you should be doing. Write your outline and do research. I found another microphone, but the microphone that I'm using right now is a MXL 990 condenser microphone. I paid $100 on Amazon just on this day, whatever, just a couple of days ago around Christmas 2016, $80. that's a deal. Now, after I've done some research, it's not necessarily good to do a condenser mic, a phantom power mic. That's what I have. And it picks up all the ambience, like that clipping. And so this is like a real producer mic, I guess. But this is just the mic that I found when I was doing some research. If you want to be a big baller, you might want to try a Shure SM7B. It's a vocal dynamic microphone, and I've seen those in a lot of real studios, but that's $400. So I called my boy Joe Mueller. I said, hey, Mr. Podcast, and he got the Blue Yeti USB mic, and I'm assuming that he records through his laptop. So you can do this straight ghetto with your laptop and record it. You could use Audacity. I use Audacity. That's number 3. I have a boom mic that clips onto my desk. It's a boom stand and a couple of cables. So, man, under a couple $100, you could do it ghetto cheap, your own laptop. Everybody has a laptop. You can get a $100 microphone, and you're in business relatively quickly. But, I'm a little bit different. I wanted to do things, travel. I wanted to interview 6 people at one time. You can't necessarily do that on the laptop. And one day I will. I'm trying to get some of my folks, my very first podcast, Luke Ward and Sean McVicker. I want to get both those guys. They actually became partners during their life process. I want to get them in the studio live. And then I want to get Amin and Tyler Winrick. They did that huge $50,000 assignment fee on the apartment deal of 20 units or the 10 duplexes. I want to get those cats in the room. And I know that I can do that with a Zoom H6. I can control all of that relatively quickly. If you did that on a laptop, had more than one person or 2 people, you might have to have adapters for your laptop, USB adapters that can plug into the microphone. So that's why I went with the Zoom. I edited. Number 3, you got to, number one, you got to write it, research it. 2, you got to record it. That's what I'm doing right now. And then after I hit stop, I got to get on Audacity. It's a software, Mac and PC, and you edit it out. It's real simple. You kind of set it up pretty quickly. How I did my bumper or that thing or music bed, I bought some music bed off of the internet, and then I hired a vocalist. I wrote the script for the vocalist, used the vocalist on Fiverr, the hot chick at the end of the podcast. Thanks for listening. Glide on in. That's just some girl that I found on Viper, on Fiverr, Fiverr.com. I think I paid like about $20 for a couple edits. So you got to do, when you're in Audacity, you got to have a bumper, which is, I think, the beginning. And then some of you cats got like commercials in there, and then you do the outro. So intro, outro, and a bumper. I don't know what that means, but that's what it is. And then one of the things that I learned really late in the game, you got to get this deal called an ID3 editor. Okay, ID3 editor. Now, your hosting company may edit it, but what an ID3 editor is, it embeds your image, your photo, into the MP3 so you can post it. You need this if you want to be on iTunes. And if you don't want to get on iTunes, you're just dumb, because everybody in the world started out with iTunes and podcasts. It has the biggest, 1 billion people or 1 billion downloads a day podcast. So even though I'm not a big Apple fan, I am on iTunes. But you got to follow the parameters. They got a specific size of an image. So what iTunes does, when you edit it in Audacity, then you bring it to an ID3 editor, which is that you embed the description and your photo or your image or your CD cover, whatever you want to call it. That's all embedded into that MP3, and then you upload it to iTunes. You upload it to a hosting company. And then iTunes grabs that feed, which is an RSS feed, and they post that photo or your image there. So I learned that the hard way. So long story short, you got an ID3 editor to edit your track, your MP3 track, to embed that stuff. Now, I wish I would have listened to this podcast when I started this thing about 2 years ago, whatever. Now, you can do this automatically through Libsyn. That's Libsyn. Man, I started out with Podbean or BeanPod or Bond, which was like the cheap, everything I do is sometimes I go the wrong way, and then I learn and I fail, and I go the other way. But one day I just Google it up. I'm like, who podcast, Rich Dad Poor Dad, where does it host at? And I found Libsyn. All the ballers, all the podcast people use Libsyn. and that's libsyn.com. The cool thing, I think you can start off with $10 a month. I think I pay $20 a month, and it's based on bandwidth. How much do you upload? Okay, so it's pretty simple. I mean, you're probably going to spend about 10. And if I would have started all over again, I was on Podcast or Podbean the first time, and then I changed over. I would just start out like a baller, assume that you're going to do well, and do lip sync. The great thing about it, thank you, Joe Mueller. Him and I were connecting over an interview, and he taught me a lot about lip sync, and it syncs automatically. I just click a button, upload it to my host, which is lip sync, and then it creates a feed, an RSS feed, and then automatically goes to iTunes. And then it goes to all like 20 other places like SoundCloud, Facebook, YouTube. Boom. So before, if you look at my original podcast, I'd have to hand upload that to iTunes. I mean, not iTunes, up to YouTube, up to SoundCloud, and it was just murder. And then I would have to create a Facebook post, murder. And then my boy helped me out, and next thing you know, and I'm still learning how to do it. Like I found Auto Leveler the other day. Like that's like kind of a technical thing to make it sound well. And the very first, if you want to go to podbean.com, that's where I first started out, and it was like really cheap, but I did that wrong, and I still have about 100-something episodes on there. Now, some superstar guys, ballers out there, use a virtual assistant to edit their tracks. Now, I use a virtual assistant to do all my call tracks. So basically, when I interview somebody over the phone, I use a VA in Siberia. It costs me about $7 an hour, and the guy just cuts out all the ums, makes it sound amazing. Every time I use that guy, it's incredible. So he charges me for that. You could use a VA to add your intro and your outro. You can do all that stuff. I know this stuff because I used to be an engineer, and I kind of mess around on tour. So I enjoy editing it, and it's real fast, and I have quick control. But anytime if I got to sit down and do more than 3 minutes to post this, I'm going to use a VA, and I recommend using a VA out the gate. All right, so that's pretty much it, how I do it. That's how I do the podcast, and then just continues to grow, and you adapt to your fans and listen to them. Try to get feedback. Try to get subjects that are empowering and grow. Here's some books that I read. I read a lot on John Lee Dumas. Okay, Google him up. He has a book on Amazon called The Podcast Launch. I think I read that book. I think he changed the name or took it off. But the very first book, I read everything I could on John Lee Dumas's website. His whole story, he posts how much he makes. It's just crazy. It's exciting, and it motivates you, so you should check it out. Another good book was Podcasting Good to Great, How to Grow Your Audience Through Collaboration, which was pretty cool. I think it's on Kindle or only on Audible. And again, that's called Podcasting Good to Great. Here's another really good one that just little nuggets that I got. Another one was called Podcastonomics, the book of podcasting to make you millions. All right, whatever. Yeah, you're going to make millions. The only way you make millions is buying real estate. So stick on that deal. Don't even try to be a podcast and make a lot of money, because it ain't going to happen. I haven't gotten $1 off this deal. So for the time and effort that I put in it. A book that I just read where I got the microphone situation slapped in my face was 100 Great Podcasting Tips from 100 Great Podcasters. It was just a really quick, down and dirty read. And I got a lot of great ideas, things I need to correct, things I need to. That's where I got the Auto Leveler from and the microphone stuff. And so it's a growing business. The podcast is just still getting momentum. I feel like I'm a little behind on the scenes. That's why you didn't make 2017 off the chain and jump on it. Now, I know this is crazy what I'm about to say, and you won't even believe me, but I'm just going to say I never heard a podcast before until I started my podcast. I think I listened to Entrepreneur on Fire for about 2 minutes, and the dude's voice drove me crazy, and I just wanted to choke out. I'm like, his voice, I'm like, what the? And he was trying to be all joyful and all this other jazz, and I was like, oh, okay, I can't be like that. But you need to check out these podcasts. Now, since then, I probably have listened to maybe a few podcasts one time, about 10 minutes. And I just want to be different. I don't want to copy people. There ain't nothing wrong with copying people or taking the best and grow from it. But these are the dudes that are doing it. I don't know any other podcast. There's a podcast on yoga. There's a podcast on everything. And whatever it is, just check it out. But here's the ones that I know that you should model. Here's the ones that I model or listen to for a few minutes and get an idea. I've never listened to a Timothy Ferriss one, Tim Ferriss. Now, I love his books, 4 Hour Work Week. I just got his new book, Titan. Here's the deal. He has over 1 million downloads. He's like the number one podcast guy. And then it's like Seth Godin. Those are the two guys. I mean, listen to how they do their show, their format. Entrepreneur on Fire. I don't know how that joker does it. John Lee Dumas, but he does a podcast every day. I think Pat Flynn, the smart investor guy, he's off the chain. I like his. Also, Gary Vaynerchuk, whatever that dude's name is, or Gary V. He's good. Also, a leadership podcast that my wife just keeps telling me about is Craig Rochelle from Life Church. His podcast is supposed to be off the chain, but this is how I look at it. I only have so much time. And just, you guys, I don't know if you know me, but I'm over here all the time writing a podcast. I don't have time to listen to another podcast because I'm trying to produce a podcast. So my goal for 2017 is to bring more authentic, helpful information like this podcast. If there's a subject that you want me to cover, or if I missed something, or I probably did, I'll probably do Podcast Gold Part 2, but this will at least get you going. Either you're going to be in or you're going to be out. Anyway, if you don't know me, that's cool, but my name is Stephen Van Kellenberg. I am the Savvy Landlord. You've listened to the SavvyRadioShow.com. The goal is to increase other people. When you increase, you can increase other people. But when you do increase, go buy assets.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at SavvyRadioShow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.